Art and Life from Milton Access TV. I'm going to take on a really complicated topic today, and you know, I think the thing to do is just relax, sit back, enjoy it, and not worry about the fact you might want to turn to Sumi-e painting. Sumi-e painting is a black brush painting, and the way I found out about it was through my husband's work as a theologian and philosopher and making contact with people in Asia because he was interested in Confucianism and Buddhism, and he brought home a set of supplies in order to learn to do Japanese and Chinese black calligraphy. Well, it was either a choice of being a philosopher or learning 5,000 Chinese characters, and finally he came to his senses and said, all right, no, I'm going to have to do Chinese in translation. But there were those wonderful, interesting supplies, and I'm always eager to try something new and different. So I began experimenting around with it, and I found that it was very familiar to me. It has a lot to do with drawing and brushwork, and so I've become interested in it, very much as an amateur. I am not a professional in it. I've done a couple of book covers using the pen, the brushes, so that's kind of interesting, but I don't consider myself to be an expert in it, but it's still very interesting. This is not a scroll, but a hanging of calligraphy from China that was given to us as a gift, and I put it up because I think it would make an interesting background, but also because it shows the effect of what happens when you use a brush to make a bit of calligraphy that can be interpreted as language. So you can see the similarity, I think, between the calligraphy and the drawing. So we're going to change positions now. Thanks for watching. You may wonder, why was I holding a crabapple blossom and a pine cone? They're the two things that I'm going to try to use to demonstrate how this media of black ink and brush works. So to say again, the style is very much dependent on the development of calligraphy. This is a famous piece of calligraphy from Japan, and we can see, if we look at this equally famous work, it's called Winds and Waves by Sesson from the 16th century, a very famous work of art, and it shows the ship being tossed, and shows the ship being tossed by the wind and the waves. And this was done with black brush, probably on a neutral ground and probably on silk. I'm not quite sure about that. It's part of a much larger work. All right, the first thing we're going to do is Robert's going to scan over some of my supplies here. Next week we're going to talk a little bit about the brushes. There are the brushes, the various types of ink, devices for holding the paper in place, all kinds of amazing supplies. There's a whole set of supplies in here, which we'll discuss. These are tourist-based supplies. A lot of this is sold for tourism, tourists. Here's a very standard little mixing tray sold at Blick and other stores. This is my favorite pen. I'll explain that in a minute. A brush, not a pen. Here's a bamboo-based brush. The hair typically comes from rabbits or squirrels or other animals and is not a synthetic. And the reason for that is the capillaries, the fiber itself, soaks up the ink in a way that a synthetic plastic fiber would not do. So almost all good brushes are made of various types of hair or fur. Like a lot of societies, people are trying to get things done in a hurry these days. I will demonstrate how the ink, which is made from black soot, is made. But for today, we're just going to use Yasatomo Sumi ink, all right, S-U-M-I, ink, black. Comes in a plastic jar with a handy squirt bottle. So why bother spending hours mixing your ink when all you have to do is unscrew the top, bend it over, and squirt out some black soot ink. Then you want to turn the top back on again. Oh sure, I knew I was going to get it on my hands. This stuff is really, really wicked on hands and clothes, so you have to watch out for that. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is put my objects aside and get out some rice paper. Not actually rice paper, but it's a paper specially designed for this type of work. And here are two very simple devices for holding your paper flat. I love these. These were given to me as a gift. These are ornamental ones. One has a dragon on it and the other has a peacock. But we're going to use the workhorse weights to hold the paper down. All right, we've got our paper down. And the first thing I want to show you is how flexible the brush is, what kinds of lines it makes. So we're going to start with this big fat brush. First thing we're going to do is, I don't want to spill that water over, we're going to get it damp, all right? And a really good brush is going to come to a beautiful, sharp point. Very good point. For a big mark, you want to have a fat brush because that's where the ink is held. But you also want to have it come to a very good point so that when you make a mark, it will, you can either make a thin line or a fat line. So I'm going to add some water here. This is sort of guesswork to this brush. And the first thing I want to demonstrate, hopefully, we've got, as I say, I am not a professional at this. Okay, we're going to try just to make a line, a very thin line. All right, I can tell right now that the brush is very heavily loaded with ink, because there we go, there's a thin line. Now you may notice that I was balancing my hand with my little finger so that I could just keep it up very, very high, all right? Let's take my favorite brush, and I will show, we also have a device for holding these brushes up, but it's not handy now. I love this brush because we bought it in Tokyo, and it's the equivalent of an Asian, ballpoint pen. This is a removable vial or plastic container where you put the ink in, and when you squeeze it, the ink goes out through the brush, and it has a cap. So if you're doing some work, a legal work, or you need to write a quick letter or a note and you're a Japanese person, you just get out your handy little ready to go brush, forget all this ink and all this paraphernalia, and you can make a mark with it. I didn't pay much for it, but it has an incredible ability to make a very thin line. Well, there we go. All right. So it's starting thick because it's got a lot of the ink in it. There's a thin line. Okay? Very, very thin line. So if you want to do calligraphy, and I know nothing about calligraphy, all right, but I suppose we say, we'll just make some up. Or, here, let's take this one, all right? So I'm going to do it upside down, which is, the Japanese, I think, would think I was crazy to do it upside down. All right, this is a fat line coming up. Then there's a line coming over here, coming up. And then over here, we come down. I'm going to run into my other calligraphy, which is not a good thing. We're going to come up. That was not a good stroke. You never do over. Never, there's no do-overs. You get it right the first time. All right, well, that's enough of my horrible calligraphy. An interesting thing about the brush is that, particularly the big ones, you can have the main part of the brush be Is this visible now? Robert Neville, my husband, is our videographer again today, giving me pointers on whether I'm actually in view or not. Thank you very much, Robert, for helping with us today. And Tom Pilla from Milton Access TV does the editing, so thanks to both. So this has got a watery pigment in the center of the brush. I'm going to dip the tip into the pure black, all right? So we have pure black at one end, and if this works, you're going to see, and we go side, oh, it worked perfectly, perfectly. Okay, it's gray on this side and dark on the other. So let me demonstrate that again. The main part of the brush has a light ink, and the tip has a dark ink. So this is the type of thing that you can do with the brush. Now let's see if we could do, yes, all right? Let's do some extra strokes with this and see what we can do. Let's dip in a little bit more strongly with it. So another phenomena with this is the dry area. So if I come in, well, it didn't do it that time. There we go. Dry, dry. You see that wonderful, is that showing up?
Yes.
Okay, great. Dry. Now, you could also slash in my opinion, not being a purist, you could add more crisscross. So let's demonstrate a few more of these. This is excellent paper. One of the hard things for Westerners to find is a paper that doesn't blur too much. So much of the stuff that's sold as a Sumi-e paper is it blurs too much. It doesn't stay crisp, and that can be very annoying. All right, let's try some more strokes. Now let's try it this time. Are we in? All right. We're going to be very playful. All right, I'm going to go in, and I'm going to do a thin line. I'm going to do a curve and come fat. All right, or we're going to come in, or we're going to go this way, that way. Oh, I love that dry brush. Oh, I love that when it goes. Oh, that's fun. Notice I'm tipping it on the side tip. Or dramatic strokes. So one of the first things people need to do when they get into this media is try to figure out what type of a stroke is needed to get a mark that you want. This is very much a drawing media. So if you're good at drawing, it'll be a big help. All right, let's move further on down the roll of paper. And I am going to switch over to showing you some of the work that I did yesterday in preparation for this lesson. So we're going to put this to one side, and I'm going to go over and get what I did yesterday. Okay. So it's been ages since I did Sumi painting. Long time. So I got out all my supplies and said, you know, let me see what I can do with it. And the first thing I did was to do one of these experimental pages. And then I said, okay, let's make something up from imagination. So my first thing was a peach. There's the peach. And then I said, well, let's do with dark and light paint, some kind of a fruit or whatever. And I like that one. And I said, well, let me find ways to do grapes. So I tried this with the dry brush. There's the grape, dry brush around, circular, so on. I did a carrot. I love my carrot. Carrot was so easy to draw. There's my carrot. And I thought, well, let me try a pine cone from memory. Is it showing up?
Yes.
Okay, so here's my pine cone drawn from memory. And I've drawn a lot of pine cones. Well, not too happy with that. So I went upstairs to my Christmas ornaments, and found a real pine cone up in the attic, Christmas ornaments. And I said, okay, let's try that again, looking at it. So my first attempt was trying to do it this way. In other words, interpreting each of the edges with black. Well, no, the edges of these parts that are coming out are light. So that isn't going to work. Then I tried that section. Boy, that doesn't work. So then I decided that what I would do would be to draw each one of the flanges that comes out from the center of the cone. And I like this one much better. So I'm going to try to demonstrate next how to do this. This is also my little attempt at doing the grapes. Okay, so let's get rid of this paper and go back to this paper. All right, and we don't need much room. Okay, put our weights down, so we gotta keep it under control. All right. Now, this is complicated enough that I'm going to have to draw it as if it were right side up for me. I cannot draw it upside down because the visual aspect of it is just too complex. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with a forward flange. I'm sure there's a technical name for these, but I don't know what it is. So I'm going to call it a, I don't know, flange, I guess. That's not a very good term, but that's what it's going to be. And I'm going to start right in the middle, all right? So I'll be starting here visually for you. When you're watching, you're going to think of down. All right, you know what we're going to do? Let me see if I can get this thing off of here. All right. I wish this weren't on here. All right. Okay. How's that? Better?
Better.
Okay. All right. So we're going to start over again. Okay. We're going to start for this part here, but I'm going to be looking at this side over here. And I'm sorry it'll be upside down for you, but that's all I can do. So I'm going to start with the little triangle. If you notice, these things are triangle. So too much water on my brush. And then it tends to go back. And then I see another one here. Way too much water. All right. And then we see another one here. There's a little triangle. And it tends to go back. Now, those of you who watched Dragon Scales last week, how to draw a dragon, this has a lot of the same principles as the dragon, because you're starting here, and then each one repeats in a rhythmic pattern that in many respects is very similar to the dragon. Or I think what we're going to do here is stop this, because I think my actual pine cone here is a much better way of trying to show you what I did. All right, I know what I'm going to do. All right, we're going to abandon this. It's not working very well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add another section to the bottom. That's what we're going to do, okay? Not too much ink. So what I did was I came, remember the M&Ms or the U's from last week? You come down, over, and up. All right? Down, over, and up. Down, over, up. All right? So you're going from a high point to a high point. And then there's this little part that comes out here. All right? And at the edge, let's make it a fatter pine cone. At the edge, you draw your triangle. Here's the triangle. And then you come in this way. So you draw the triangle and you come in that way. All right? In towards the center. Let's add a few more. All right? Let's add some out here. There is down, over, up, out. Okay? Okay, and then what I did after I did that was with the edge of the brush, I kind of just faded in here with a little bit of the gray. All right, and that's how I got that more three-dimensional look. So I'm hoping that maybe will give you some idea of how we went about it. All right, let's try another topic. We have some more time here. This time what I'm going to try to do is to do the crabapple blossom. All right, this is a really hard one to do. This is all hard. There's nothing easy about this. I tell you, it really isn't. Okay, so I was brought up at an apple farm. So I love apple blossoms, and this is a crabapple blossom just beginning to come into bloom here in Milton. A beautiful pink color. So what I'm going to try to do here is to actually draw it with the tip of my brush and not use the technique of making like that would be a petal, that would be a petal, that would be a petal. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to try to just draw it, and again, I'm going to have to draw it so I can see it because it's a complex topic. So you always start with what's closest to you, and I don't like that leaf. I'm getting rid of that leaf. And I'm going to start with a little blossom that's coming out there. Oh, nice thin line. And then it kind of comes out this way. Oh gosh, who do you suppose that is? Okay, sorry about the interruption, a friend at the door. Okay, so that's the first petal. Then I see a petal coming out here, and then a petal off to this side, comes to a little point, and then behind that, there's another little apple blossom coming here. All right. Now I'm going to see one that has a delightful curve. We're going to double this one. This one curves way up, comes like that. Has a little part of the, and then there are these little parts that come out here. Then we go down. There's a blossom end here. Here's one that's a cup form. There's another one over there. Okay, in here I see a little tiny leaf, not very big. You'll see how much this depends on observation. Okay, now I see another one springing off to this side, and this time I'm going to come in. All right, and this one appears, here's the little bulbous shape. These little parts come out. This one comes out. Now what am I doing? I'm looking exactly at what I see here and concentrating. I'm not wiggling the flower. And if I see an outline, I'm drawing it. But you'll notice I am not wiggling the flower. Okay, there's another one here. Okay, now up here, I'm going to draw this one. This one springs also in here. And this one comes, it's got a wonderful shape, kind of curving up there. There's another light curve there with a back showing. Now on this one, I see all the little stamens and antlers and so on in there. This one probably got overdone. And then we'll see one in the back, see one coming down here. All right, and these little parts here. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I see a leaf coming up here. There's the leaf shape. Okay, another part of this flower is branching over here. I'm going to rearrange that leaf because I want the flower to be in front. So up we go, it springs out, this shape, this, and this one is a closed. This one hasn't opened up yet, so that's a closed flower. And then curiously, from about, boy, we've got a leaf in here. It's pretty complicated. All right, that leaf is coming out, and it's sort of curling down like this, kind of coming around, and kind of has that shape. And then there's another leaf coming here, going out, down, fatter here, thinner there. All right, another one coming. Ooh, mistake. Oh, that's a tragedy. That is, I wasn't paying enough attention. Sorry about that. That breaks it, pretty much ruins the drawing. Nothing you can do about it either. Start over. All right. Because of that disaster, I think we're going to speed this up a little bit. Yeah, that pretty much. Okay. That basically just, that's the end of the drawing. Can't have that. All right. So we're going to go a little faster here. All right, because it's already a ruined drawing. So we'll just kind of make up some of these things here. And there's a leaf over here. All right, another one here. All right, that is so sad. Okay, because it was fun till we did that. All right, so now if you wanted to, you could add some little vein lines on your leaves. You know, that would kind of identify the leaves. And let me show you another thing that could be done, and that would be to go into a very light ink, lots and lots and lots of water. All right, since this is already a ruined drawing, let me show you what you could do. You could come in here with the gray ink and exaggerate some of these edges with the gray on one side. So if you do this, let's be consistent here. That would give a little bit more depth, emphasis to the actual forms. And the other thing it does, kind of interesting, it mitigates the problem with the blotch, all right? So in some ways, jeez, looks like a caterpillar. Should we turn it into a caterpillar? Let's make it a caterpillar. Ugh, the drawing's already ruined. Okay, it's a caterpillar. Gosh, caterpillar. And he's got a big head and googly eyes. All right, and he's munching. Caterpillar. But you know the good part about it? Caterpillar is going to turn into a butterfly. Okay, caterpillar, butterfly. Wow, we got all of nature going in here. All right, that's it. So it's a caterpillar, crabapple blossoms, and a butterfly. So next week, we're going to deal a little bit with color and try to show you some other examples. And I also want to show you my supplies. Some of them are very interesting to look at. All right, thanks for watching Art and Life. And thank you for watching Art and Life. And hopefully we'll see you next week to go further into Sumi-e, looking at the supplies and dealing a little bit with color. Okay, thank you for watching.